Working. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, is the sound working? In the comments, if you can just let me know if the sound is okay. Okay, so right, excellent. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Alright, so let's look at the questions that you guys have. Okay, so wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Big Mo. Right, so questions. Just want to try to get through the questions as much as possible. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First question. This is on Curious Cat. Right, so the first question is, can someone give sadaqah fitr on your behalf and then tell you later, or must you give them permission on your behalf first? So as long as, basically, before it's given to the person, they've used it, the person has to know. So yeah, you have to tell them beforehand. I mean, if you hand it over and then you tell them and that person hasn't used it yet, then that's fine. But what I would say ideally is try to get permission from them. Explicit permission or implicit is fine as well. So for example, like if they seem to be okay with it, that's fine. Okay, with regards to the virtue of Laylatul Qadr being more than 1,000 nights, does that pertain to any good action? So the narration doesn't mention like exactly what does it mean that you get the reward of 1,000 months. Like, does it mean that you get the reward of 1,000 months in the sense that if you do it on one night, then you multiply that by 1,000 months, as though you'll be doing it for over 1,000 months? Does it mean that? Does it mean that if you give £1, then it gets multiplied by that much? Exactly how does all that work? This is something which it's the aim is motivation, really. The reality of it, we don't really know 100%, but it's motivation. And if Allah is saying that the night of Laylatul Qadr is better than 1,000 months, then that shows you that this night, the actions that are done on this night are going to be more virtuous than any other night in the entire year. Okay, many people who are fundraising these last 10 days have been encouraging people to donate by saying that last 10 days that if you donate $1 and it coincides with Laylatul Qadr, then it will be as if you donated $1 for 1,000 nights. Possibly, yeah, that's one possible meaning of it. Is this understanding correct? Yes. Is the virtue for any action done in this night or only for specific actions like Qiyam Tilawah? So it seems any action, because the Quran is just general about it, unrestricted. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. So I wanted to know, so you have to read any particular du'as, etc. when moving into a new house? No, not necessarily. Just Bismillah when you enter the house. Bismillah. Or maybe the du'a of entering a house. Bismillah walajna wa ala Allah rabbina tawakkalna, or anything of that sort. I've heard Maulvis being invited to read du'as and then do khatam. So it's not from the Sahaba that they used to do this, but it's just done out of barakah. Like, you want someone blessed to be there, so maybe you call the Maulvi because he knows Quran, and maybe you believe him to be very blessed, so you invite him over. But no, that's not necessary to do such a thing. A person has diabetes and is not able to fast in Ramadan. Can he give fidya of all the missed fasts of Ramadan to one poor person on one day, or does it have to be given on 30 separate days? No, you can give it to all 30 on one day, although it's disliked, but he can do that. Ideally, to give it to separate people. Assalamu alaikum. Due to COVID-19, is it permissible to pray Eid Salah at home? If so, would it be read individually, or can we pray in congregation? Is there a minimum number of people? So I've done a video on this a few days ago about praying Eid at home, and the conclusion was no, according to Hanafis it wouldn't be allowed. But I do know there are some Hanafis who have written fatwas that say that there is permissibility for it, although I can't seem to find the scope for it, from my understanding of Hanafi madhab. But yeah, if you were to pray, then you pray in congregation, yeah, and the same rules that apply to Jum'ah would apply to, so you have to have 4 men. Okay, right, let's look at some questions here. Okay, Sheikh, you're my Pabe. Can I call you Pabe? I don't know what Pabe means, but if it's a good thing, then I don't mind. Okay, yes, it's perfect. Okay, so our note, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can someone add more niyas in Nawafil, e.g. fasting in Shawwal with the niyyah of Qadha plus the 6 sunnah of fasting of day of Shawwal? I was clear. So if you're making multiple niyyahs of Nafal, then I would say that's permissible. So if you want to fast, let's say, on Monday, because the Prophet ﷺ would regularly fast Mondays and Thursdays, and you want to fast Shawwal, that's fine. But if you're making a niyyah of a fard and a nafal, this is where it's problematic. So I did mention in yesterday's live stream that the Hanafi texts don't seem to be very clear about this issue with regards to the 6th of Shawwal. As in, can you fast Qadha in Shawwal and it coincides with you fasting 6 days? Or do you have to fast the 6 days separately from the Qadha? So I wasn't really sure exactly what the Hanafis were saying there. I said I'm still in 2 minds, but I can see what those people who say you can do it, I can see where they're coming from. Because the idea of fasting 6th of Shawwal doesn't seem to be a specific 6 days. It just seems to be, the action of fasting coinciding on 6 days in Shawwal. So whether that fasting is a nafal fast or a qadha fast or whatever, that can coincide with that. So yeah, so I think there's scope for that, because when in the Hanafi madhab you're trying to look for a masala, what you try and do is you're trying to look for something that's already been stated in the early works, and then you try to find the answer as close as possible to someone who's mentioned it. And strange thing is, no one in the early book seems to have mentioned this masala. So because they haven't mentioned it, it seems as though there's scope in there. Like, it doesn't seem as though it's that strict. So I used to be on the opinion that no, Qadha should be fasted separately and the 6th of Shawwal separately, but now I'm starting to incline towards permissibility of it. MashaAllah, Dr. Maulana Harun Sidat, Allahu Akbar, please do benefit from him. He's a real asset. Jazakallah khair, Maulana Harun. So Maulana Harun, guys, check out his YouTube channel, check out his Facebook. This guy is, if he's calling me an asset, then he is the father of all assets. Yeah, so make sure you check him out, inshallah. Searching Nomad, what are the virtues of the night before Eid? So the virtues are that, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about this being a night of Jaiza, in which angels come down and angels greet people. As for specific rewards, I'm not too familiar with any specific rewards of this night, but because the scholars of the past and the Salihin and the pious used to spend this time in worship, that's a virtue in itself, right? It's because the practice of the early scholars is considered to be sufficient. Wahidu alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban. Fiz, assalamu alaikum. Have seen a few masjids holding congregations with 2 meters distance. Is it permissible? Yes, it's permissible. Standing next to each other is not a condition for salat to be valid, by the way. It's not a condition to be valid. It's highly recommended, but it's not a shart of salat. HK, can you make a dual intention? For example, if I give £10 in charity, can I give that same money for myself and my whole family? Or do I have to give £10 separately for everyone? So you're giving £10 to charity and you give it on behalf of yourself and your family. Yes, that's fine. In fact, you can give it on behalf of the entire ummah if you want. Right? It's fine, totally fine. 95 grade. Is there such a thing as night of reward on the... So there are many narrations that indicate what, although there are da'if narrations, but because you put them together and because you find scholars practice in the past conforming with this, then that's sufficient to act upon it. So it wouldn't be necessary to consider this night to have a virtue. Fiz, is zakat payable on money that we know is going to be used for something within a few months, given that this person pays zakat yearly? Yeah, as long as if it's outstanding, if it's basically in Sharia, if another human being wants that money off you, it's outstanding, then you don't consider it to be part of your zakatable assets, right? You only consider your zakatable assets that's which is yours now, right? But if someone is wanting money from you, as in you owe them, then that money which you owe them is actually not yours. So in your assets, that amount technically you don't give zakat on. But if it's not outstanding, if it's future expenses, future bills that you know you're going to pay, but you haven't incurred them yet, then no. Okay, Wahid, regarding 40 hadith video on not reciting Quran to earn money, would this include when people hire qadis who have fixed fees to milad, etc., to come and recite gatherings, some for nasheed videos? So, I mean, this is a good question. This is with regards to, I made in the 40 hadith series, I mentioned about the hadith about those who read Quran to earn money, and the issue here with this one is that there has been a difference of opinion amongst the early scholars with regards to teaching Quran and earning. So Shafis and Malikis seem to be okay with this. Hanafis were very strict to say no, but later on the Hanafis took the Shafi Maliki opinion because it became too difficult for people to be able to sustain themselves through other income and teach as well, because in the early years governments would provide a fund for the teachers, and then that government stopped giving that fund. So now the teachers would obviously have to work. Now if the teachers are going to be working full time and they won't have time to dedicate to teaching, then it's going to cause a problem in the preservation of the deen. So due to that, this was permissible. As time went by, the early years you didn't have this idea of charging people for time except for days. So for instance, like if you do fiqh, in the chapter of ijara, in renting, you charge people for your service, and a service could be charged by time, but the shortest time that was categorical, that was agreed upon, was the day or night, right? So day or night. So now we have clocks, so we can actually measure time. The smallest time we can measure is actually in seconds. So now the idea of working for someone and charging them by the hour or half an hour or whatever is something that's conceivable today. It's something which is understandable. That's why this would be something that would be taken into consideration here. So if a person, for example, was reciting Quran and was charging, but that charge was for the time they're giving, like they're saying, look, I'm giving my time to attend an event, to deliver a talk, to travel, costs and all that, I'm charging for that, and I'm not charging for the recitation itself, then that would be permissible, because the idea was that if someone comes to you and says to me, read the Quran to me, and you charge them for reading the Quran, that was considered to be wrong, basically. So this is why when we look at this masala, the fiqh aspect of this masala is very detailed, and that's why I didn't go into it too much into the hadith videos, because the hadith videos were designed simply to explain the gist of what the hadith was saying. Okay, let's check some questions here. I borrowed an amount from my mum, and then I've been paying it back in small amounts every month. There still is half due. If this money is not being spent on her children as its child benefit money, which is the source of money, can I repay my debt by spending directly on the kids, as my mum can't be trusted with monetary matters? She is being treated for mental health too. Okay, so I borrowed an amount from my mum, and then I've been paying it back in small amounts every month. There still is half due. If this money is not being spent on her children as as its child benefit money, which is the source of money. Can I repay my debt by spending directly on the kids? Yes. Yeah. So basically, what you would become there, you would become what we call a trustee. Yeah, a wakil. So you're going to act as a trustee on behalf of your mother because her mental condition makes it difficult for her to be able to deal with money. So whatever you see fit, you can spend that money there. Right, that would be fine. Assalamu alaikum. If someone gives sadaqah fitr on your behalf and then tells you after they gave, is that allowed or must permission be given beforehand? Yeah, so as I answered this one before. Salam, if someone allowed to pay fidya, is someone allowed to pay fidya for all the missed Ramadan fasts before the end of Ramadan? Technically no, because unless they 100% know that they can't 100% know that they can't fast. So maybe, I'm guessing maybe there. But technically no, because you only incur the obligation, or the obligation only upon you when the day comes. So when the day comes and you can't fast on that day, that's when it's obligatory upon you to do the action. So technically, if you were to, let's say, fast before your day of fasting came, that fast will not be counted for that day. So based on that, I'm thinking it wouldn't be allowed. But because this is something which, if a person 100% knows, doctors have said, there's no cure for this person, and that person will never be able to fast ever again, and that person was to give their money in advance, then just like zakat, I'm thinking, yeah, there might be scope for that. Is it allowed to give to one needy person on one day? Yes, you can, although it's considered disliked. Or is it like kafara of broken fast in which you can't give food of 60 days to one needy on one day? To explain, yes. So you can give it to, the fuqaha say that fidya can be given to one person. Yeah, the person who can't fast, basically, it's called a fidya. So the fidya they give, you can give it to one person. It'll be acceptable. It's fine. However, they consider it to be disliked. Rather you should give it to them over several days or different people. Assalamu alaikum. If I bite my lips while fasting and I accidentally swallowed a piece of skin, will this nullify my fast? If it's a large piece of skin and you can taste it, you can actually feel the skin, and then yes, it'll break your fast. But if it's smaller, you don't even realize, then no, it won't. No kafara. Will saying you swear an oath by Allah, you bring Allah into your discussion, and you make something like as though you are making something sort of like sanctified by Allah. So I'm not too sure about saying I promise to Allah. Yeah, I don't think it is promise, because promise. Yeah, be considered, for example, an oath. I promise to Allah I will never go to Aisha's house again. If she goes to Aisha's house, no, I don't think it will be counted. Promise. Yeah, so it has to be a qasam, it has to be an oath or something in the meaning of oath. So promises don't fall into that. I broke an oath and I was told I should feed 10 poor people or clothe 10 poor people. I have a non-Muslim housemaid who comes from a poor family. Can I give her the money for the 10 clothes? Yes, you can. Assalamu alaikum, Ustad. Is there any evidence to show that there are benefits of writing Bismillah 625 times on the 26th of Ramadan? It has been said by a Pakistani Maulvi. I have no idea. I've never come across it before. Wallahu alam. Okay, let's have a look at some of your questions. Alright, so in Islam, Assalamu alaikum. I saw some videos of people reciting the adhan on top of mosques, Alhamdulillah, recent of Ramadan. A friend showed me a video of a brother singing an Urdu durud on top of a mosque after the adhan and was saying felt a little uncomfortable with it. Should these kind of things be done? Yes, it's allowed. I mean, reading durud sharif, reading citation of the Prophet ﷺ in whatever language is permissible. And is actually read durud salat al nabi allowed at the end as well. Can you make a dual intention? For example, if I give, I think think I answered this one. Answer this one. No. Okay, I think I answered this one. London. Assalamu alaikum. Are you aware of Pi Corbett's storyboard modeling strategy? No. As you use drawings to explain hadith, you may find his technique. Okay, I'll check it out. Pi Corbett's storyboard. Alright, I'll have a look at that. Bin Shu'aib. Can someone start a congregation with a man who was praying solitary initially? Yes. As long as it's fard salat, yes. Is it okay then if the imam has different niyyah to the congregation? No. According to Hanafis, the niyyah has to be the same. So let's say, for example, you enter a room and your friend is praying Asr. You can actually join him. So maybe tap him on his shoulder, maybe acknowledge that you are praying behind him, and you can join in, even though he didn't make intention for being an imam. That's allowed. But the salat has to be the same. So if it's Dhuhr, it's Dhuhr, Asr, Asr, he can't be praying one and you the other. Unless you pray nafal behind him, then it's allowed. Okay, let's check out another question then. Okay, Salam. Shortly before I performed wudu, a spot on face had burst and pus came out. Tried my best to wipe it down and then done wudu. Will my fast be valid if water comes in contact with that? Yes, it will. Fast does not break because water touches your blood. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Must a wife obey her husband in matters which go against the law of the land but do not violate the Sharia? E.g., during the lockdown period, if a husband and wife are living in separate houses and the husband tells her wife he wants to visit her in her house, but the law states, yes, it will be allowed. Yeah, I mean, Islamically, one is, for example, like abiding by what the law says in this country, and one is by abiding by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Clearly, you cannot disobey Allah, right? Unless, there's no choice. But disobeying the land, although you're going to be in trouble with the government, you won't necessarily be in trouble Islamically, right? Unless you made a binding agreement with the government, like a contract, and you broke that contract, then you're going to be sinful in the eyes of Allah because you broke a contract that you had signed and agreed to. If my half brother, my mahram, we share the same father but different, yes. Half brothers are mahrams. So same father, same mahrams. Can you put your child up for adoption? Yes, you can put your child up for adoption. The only thing is you can't charge. You can't take money for it. So basically you can't sell your child. Can women go into the bath, non-compulsory i'tikaf? Only if there is a dire need, right? Otherwise, no. Hello, Ustad. I really pray hard for something, and when it doesn't happen, I start losing hope and get lazy for namaz. Then when I come back to normal namaz routine, I start praying for it again. And when I pray really hard for it, then I start skipping my namaz again. Should I take it as a sign from Allah and stop praying for it? Or should I just keep praying for it and not lose hope? Yeah, so it depends what you're praying for as well. Sometimes you think about what you're praying for. If it's not something which is practical for you, then you know it's wrong anyway. But everything else, as long as it doesn't go against Islam, then you can pray for it, right? You can ask for it. Carry on asking for it. It's just a test. Part of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, your du'as are accepted, delayed, right? They might be accepted a day later, a week later, a year later, 10 years later, maybe even in the hereafter. Allah does accept du'as, but it's different ways He accepts. And sometimes He doesn't accept du'as. The trick is to try and get the balance of like how to ask Allah, when to ask Allah. And sometimes some of the scholars used to say, oh Allah, if this thing is not good for me, put it in my heart that I don't need it anymore, that I don't want it anymore. Okay, Salams, do you have to pay zakat on any precious metals besides? No, unless they are for selling purposes, unless they're for trade. Then you have to as a trade commodity, but otherwise platinum and titanium and other precious metals, you know zakat. I hope all is well. Firstly, I would like to say that I understand the question will have some controversy. However, I have lived with a Shia this year, and him and his brother have left me with some very unclear stories about Islam. They told me about the story of the Prophet's daughter Fatima and said that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu Umar broke down the door of a house and were the main reason of her falling ill, which led to her death. They also mentioned that the mob which was sent to the house attacked Hazrat Ali too. I don't know what is and isn't true, but I could not find much online. Simply do not trust online too. I understand if this is too controversial. No, so it's a good question. So basically, when it comes to understanding like classical reports of things that happened in the past, there's a very, very important rule we have to understand. We have to verify every single thing. Like, we can't rely just because someone said it, right? Whether it's something to do with Quran or Hadith or fiqh or anything like that, we have to have verification of where this Hadith came from or where this mas'ala came from. So anything that basically, me as a graduate or someone who's graduated from Islamic Institute, if you ask me any mas'ala and I give you an answer, I should be able to back what I'm saying up with a evidence, and not any evidence. The evidence has to be something which is acceptable according to the masses of scholars. So if it's not acceptable amongst the scholars, then this is not considered evidence, right? This is where people get confused a lot, and the reason they get confused is, number one, is that they haven't learnt their own tradition properly, and when they get into sort of like discussions with maybe another sect like Shia, or with Orientalists, or maybe with Qadianis, Ahmadis, or with any other sort of like group, whatever, then they get confused because they don't, like, as a layperson, you can't tell what's right and what's wrong. You just follow the person you trust. That's how lay people generally work. So the person they trust, they follow them. And even if I give a lay person a dalil, they won't be able to weigh that dalil. As in, that dalil will not mean much to them because they don't know how to deal with it. Like, they don't know how to gauge the dalil, right? So this is why when it comes to these matters, personally, I would say for you to study this. So if you really want to understand about the differences of the Shias and the reports the Shias or the claims Shias are making against the Sunnis, I would say to study this, right? And studying this would clarify lots and lots of things. First of all, so going back to this question then, the claim with regards to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu, breaking, there is no report, to my knowledge, a valid report that claims this, right? The only controversial thing, I would say, which even Imam Bukhari and early scholars have all touched on, right, which is things like the land of family of the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Abbas radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu, Fatima radiallahu anhu, they came to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu to ask for this land. They said, look, it was our father's. Abu Bakr said, I can't give it to you. The Prophet ﷺ, he clearly said that we are prophets, we do not inherit any wealth. Like, we don't pass on any wealth. So none of the Prophet ﷺ's wealth was passed on to his. So this was like a special rule for prophets. And he said, look, this land is not yours. It was something which Allah gave the Prophet ﷺ to spend. I can spend on you from government's wealth, but I can't give you this land. So this caused a sort of disagreement amongst the early Sahaba. Fatima radiallahu anha was upset about this. Ali radiallahu anhu was upset about this as well. So this is one issue. And another issue was, with regards to the how the early family of the Prophet ﷺ in the Umayyad dynasty were treated, right? The Umayyad dynasty, how they were treated, and this actually caused the political uprising of many of the supporters of Ali, which is called Shia of Ali, basically. And then they began to split themselves off, and so there's like a whole history behind what has been mentioned here. But what I would say is, I remember once I went to a brother's house and the brother said to me, I haven't read the Quran, but I know that Surah Baqarah is all about Ali and Fatima. And I said, the word Ali and Fatima doesn't even appear in Surah Baqarah. So this is where people get confused, right? People have these misunderstandings, rumors that they're hearing here and there. And unfortunately, it kind of causes a problem for a lot of youth as well. Okay, so next question then. London Ramsey, if you know any primary school teachers, they will all know about Pi Corbett. Okay, he is a leading education consultant. Excellent. Jazakallah khair for that. I'll inshallah check that out. Isa Ahmad, yesterday I asked about rabbit and deer meat. You said the person must be a Muslim, Jew, or Christian. But why? The command to say Allah's name before killing an animal was to oppose the pagans who would. So the reason being because in the Quran, Allah says, وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ وَطَعَامُكُمْ حِلٌّ لَهُمْ. Right, so that's the first evidence. And also the narration of the Prophet ﷺ where he's asked about someone said to him about, can we eat the meat of the Majus, the fire worshippers? And he said no. He says you can't eat their meat and you can't marry their women, but everything else you can deal with them as you know, as you would with a Muslim. So that's the evidence. So, and to oppose the pagans, I mean, if you can provide evidence for this, Isa, I mean, I don't know. I've never come across that. Sacrifice their animals to idols, but they would not sacrifice hunted animals to false gods. So why are you joining both? I'm not joining by Isa. Chill out, bro. Chill out, chill. So provide evidence. I mean, you see, you're coming out with logic, but you're not coming out with like, okay, say something the Malikis said, like early Malikis. Say something the Hanbalis said. Say something the early Tabi'in, Sahaba said. If you can provide that, maybe we can look into it. But you're just like randomly just saying things. Surely hunted animals are exempt from Bismillah requirements. So the issue of Bismillah is separate. Whether you have to say Bismillah, whether the Jews and Christians have to say Bismillah on the meat is a separate thing. But unanimously the scholars agree you cannot eat non-Muslim, non-Jewish and non-Christian meat. So I can't see where you're getting this reasoning from. This seems to be very modernist sort of like reasoning. Like how modernist or like modernist Muslims would reject the position of early scholars and just like come out with their own sort of like that's what it seems to me. Okay, AF, you Eid Mubarak, brother. Why do some mosques not celebrate today unlike Somalia? I don't know. Moon sighting depends where you are in the world. Manfado wa alaikum assalam. What is the best way to learn usul fiqh? Best way to learn usul fiqh is going to uruk.com and I've got a whole course there, 28 lessons of usul fiqh. You can register for that. I think it's about 75 pounds. The whole course, 28 lessons. And it goes through usul fiqh, 20 lessons. Then after that you can do usul shashi, which is about 60 lessons, usul shashi. And then after that you can do Nul Anwar and yeah. Somalia is the new Pakistan. Allahu Akbar. Okay, so let's check some more of these questions out. Okay, next. Assalamu alaikum. 2 questions about Sadaqah Fitr. Does it have to be food or cash? Can I give clothing to a poor person or food items like raisins or rice? If so, how much would I give? Yeah, so does it have to be food or cash? So it can be food, it can be cash, or anything equivalent in its value, right? So you can possibly give, something which is in the value of the amount that you're supposed to give, or food as like raisins or rice. Yeah. So so for example, like let's say you're going to give £5, so £5 of some other food item you can give to them. The scholars say ideally giving them money usually is the best option because it's something that they can use, right? So it's very versatile. Rather than giving them food is good, but let's say 10 people come and bring them dates. So what are they going to do with 10 people bringing them dates? So rather giving them cash seems to be better. Can I give it to a non-Muslim poor person? Sadaqat al-Fitr. So this is where Hanafis haven't seemed to have mentioned clearly about Sadaqat al-Fitr. Can it be given to non-Muslims or not? But I would say to stay safe, just give it to Muslims. Yeah. Sorry. Sadaqat al-Fitr they have said. My mistake. I made a mistake there. Sadaqat al-Fitr they have said. Sadaqat al-Fitr they say it's in the same category as Zakat. So therefore you can't give it to non-Muslims. I was thinking of Vidya. Okay, so all the curious questions are all finished. Right, let's check this out. Salam Ustad, hope you are well. MU786. There are multiple charities asking for money. How do you choose who you give your money to? Do you give to which is most trusted and decline others as not possible? Yeah, so I mean what I tend to do is I only try to give to charities who I know who the trustees are. That's what I usually do. So for example, like Ummah Welfare Trust, I know many of them that work there, and I know how the policy works. A National Zakat Foundation, One Ummah, um, um, who else is there? I think Muslim Aid as well. But again, it's not all projects. It'll be sometimes even be projects which I know that these projects are working fine. So that's personally me, guys. What I would say, look, as long as you from the outside don't see anything wrong with them, and you haven't heard anything negative said by them by respectable people, then I would say give them. And even if you're wrong, then you're absolved of your duty. Right? And the fuqaha even say that if you gave your zakat to a person, thinking that this person was eligible, and then later on you find that they were not eligible, your zakat's done, because you done it based upon your ability. Allah doesn't burden a person more than they can bear. Okay. To give to all. I mean, I wouldn't give to all. That's you asking me, guys. That's just my own personal preference. I'm not saying that they're all wrong. So, the thing about charity organizations is that they have different projects. Some of the projects are totally legitimate. Some of the projects I feel a bit uncomfortable with. And maybe there might be some charity organizations that might be taking too much admin fees, I feel. Things like that. Can someone in the UK celebrate Eid based upon a moon sighting in Somalia? Yes, they can. Possible. Because this all goes to the issue of global sighting or local sighting. So some scholars are on the opinion, if one sighting is seen in the world by a country, then the rest of the world can follow. What about Al-Imdad? I can't say anything about Imdad because I'm not very familiar with them. But I do know some people who have worked with them in the past. I think they might be good, but I don't know. I can't say about Imdad. I was having a look at Arabic grammar and Tarkib course. Should I do that or Surah Yasin and Surah Mulk course? I need practice with Nahw and Tarkib. See, it depends. I mean, the Nahw Tarkib course, basically I go through about 40 hadith, short ones, and I apply Tarkib. So in there you actually learn how to break down more Tarkib, very specifically. It's very specifically tailored around being able to apply all the rules of Nahw to that. The Surah Yasin and Surah Mulk one is that if you've done the 17 lessons, it's like a follow-on. So it takes the 17 lessons that you learnt and then it adds to them more. So you're kind of doing a very similar thing, but the way that you're doing in Surah Yasin is the 17 lessons are being applied in every ayah, and also slowly you're building up to be able to do the tarkib of a full ayah. Does that make sense? So I mean, both, I would say both would be, whichever one you take would be beneficial. It all depends upon. What I can do is, if you send an email, I can send you one of the or a couple of lessons of the Tarkib one, couple of lessons of the Surah Yasin one, and you can check what you think. The Surah Mulk one is a bit more advanced. That's got more balagha in there. So it's like a follow-on from Surah Yasin. So it's got Tarkib in there as well, and it's also got balagha points. In lots of salawat and salam, like Prophet Ibraheem Alehissalaam is mentioned. What's the connection? Why specifically Ibraheem Alehissalaam as not other prophets? So this is probably because in the Quran Allah mentions about blessings on the family of Ibrahim. So because blessings are mentioned on the family of Ibrahim, so this is something which kind of fits in with the idea of sending blessings on the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as you sent it on Ibrahim and his family Alehissalaam. So it's a kind of this is what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do a lot as well. The du'as of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many of them were sort of you can see they've been inspired from the Quran. They're Quran inspired ones. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh alaykum ahl al-bayt, when the story of Jibreel alayhi salam coming to their house and telling them about them having a child, etc. So this was blessings and salutations were being given to them. And because the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned about the virtues of Ibrahim Alehissalaam himself and his family. Yeah, so because many of the prophets that the Quran mentions, you know, they stem from Ibrahim Alehissalaam, right? So Ibrahim, for example, Ismail Alehissalaam, and then Ishaq Alehissalaam. So Ibrahim Alehissalaam's family is a very blessed family indeed. Okay, so Assalamu alaikum, Abdullah Khan, mashallah. Hope you are well, Jazakallah khair. I saw your video about making wudu from one glass of water. It was amazing. My question is that if I am making wudu from a jug, can I dip my hands in the jug to lift the water? And after yes, you can do that. In fact, that's how the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba used to actually do it. So dip the hand in if you can. Right, dip the hand in. But if you can't dip the hand in, then they used to also pour it into the hand. So dip your hand in, take the water, wash your face, dip the hand in, you know, and do the rest of the wudu. Definitely. Excellent. And that method of actually doing wudu is more is more blessed as well, because you're wasting less water, and by wasting less water you kind of become more sort of like conscious about obligations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, you know that I'm doing this very carefully, this is like an act of worship. And personally, when I do wudu like that, I mean I don't always do wudu like that, but if I do wudu like that, I feel it more in my salat. So my salat becomes more like powerful, strong. Alright, if you salam alaikum rahmatullah. What's the main difference in zakat between the four schools? What's the main? They're not main, there's loads of differences. There's lots of differences between the madhabs. I mean, I don't have time to actually go through each one. But the kind of same things that they all agree upon is the eight the Quran mentioned. They all agree upon that. They all agree it's something that is based upon an annual zakat that you give once a year. They all base upon the idea that you have to have a threshold. So these are the things that they agree upon. But then in differences, there's quite a lot of differences that they have. But they're not like major differences. They're like small differences. What I would suggest, if you really want to study this, is actually study this properly. Yeah, if you're really interested in this. Sheikh Yusuf Qardawi actually has a book called Zakat. I think it's called Fiqh of Zakat. Fiqh of Zakat. It's quite big, and he discusses the four madhabs, and he discusses. I haven't studied the 70 lessons, but I already have understanding of basic Arabic. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, then it'll be okay as long as you got the basically 17 lessons covers the major Arabic rules like mubtada, khabar, fi'l, fa'il, maf'ul bihi, idafa, mudaf, mudaf ilayh, past verbs, present verbs, mawsuf, sifas, adjectives, dual nouns, plural, sound masculine, plural, sound feminine, plural, jazm, amar, to make amar, nahi, that kind. Those are the main kind of rules, and then it's applied in the Quran. London, Eid Mubarak, Ustad. My door is always open for a discussion over a nice cup of cafe latte. All right, with you. Take care and keep safe. Yes, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, London. If I come to London, inshallah, definitely. Depends which part of London, because London is so big and it can take literally sometimes 2 hours to get from one part of London to another part of London. And then you got the congestion charges, which is a big headache. But yeah, inshallah. Why not? Okay, let's see. There's a curious cat question here. Alright, so I have two questions regarding the recitation in Salah. I've realized I've been making some recitation mistakes in some of the surahs I have memorized, particularly in Surah Humaza. Verse 3, I left hu off the word akhlada. And in Surah Zilzal, verse 8, I placed the waw at the start of the I made the same mistake in Surah Al-Qariya, verse 8, switching the waw and the fa. What is the ruling on recitation mistakes invalid? No, this won't invalidate. Yeah, because it doesn't change the meaning of it. So that would be acceptable, but next time try not to do it. What's the ruling on recitation mistakes invalid in Salah? The ruling basically is that if it changes the meaning of the ayah, like drastically changes the meaning, then it's wrong. This is like many of the Hanafis have taken this. Some of the Hanafis have actually been a bit more lenient and said It will only nullify the salat if you have said something in the Quran which is against Islam. Yeah, like if you say Adam created Allah. Yeah. So if you say something like that, that's obviously against Islam. You didn't mean it, but it would render your salat nullified that you are starting. All of this is only if you haven't read 3 correct verses. So if you've like Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil, as long as you've read 3 correct verses, including Fatiha, your salat technically is done. Yeah, salat will be done. The second is regarding order of recitation of surahs between rakat. Does the order of verses in the Quran have to follow exactly like if a person reads Surah Humaza in the first rakat and then Surah Nas in the second? Would this be okay, or are you only to read Surah Falaq and then Nas? I have heard you are not allowed to go backwards. If you stop halfway in a surah like Surah Bayyinah, for example, must you complete it in the second rakat? Also, I heard there was an opinion that you can't recite a shorter number of verses in the second rakat. Okay, so there's quite a few questions here. So let me break this down. So the Hanafis say basically that sticking to the tartib of the Quran is only necessary in fard salats, right? In fard salats, not in nafal. In nafal you can actually read from whenever you want, doesn't matter. So tartib is only in the fard salat, and this tartib in fard salat in itself as well is something that has to be understood, as in you have to keep the order flowing, and so that it doesn't cause people behind to become confused as well. That's one of the reasons. So in fard salat, keep the tartib, but it won't nullify your salat, right? So tartib, they say, is lazim of qira'ah, not lazim of the shurut of salat, conditions of salat. Okay, so the other one was, I've heard that you're only allowed to go backwards. I've heard you are not allowed to go backwards. No, you can actually go backwards in nafal. Sunnahs and nafals, you can do that. If you stop halfway in a surah, like Surah Bayyinah, for example, must you complete it? No, you don't have to complete the entire surah. You can. The Prophet ﷺ, on some occasions, he would only read a few ayats from a surah. Yeah, like, from Surah A'raf, or from Surah, like Tawbah, or some other place. He would read a few verses, not the entire thing, on some occasions. So it's not necessary to complete. If you start, okay, next. Also, I heard there was an opinion that you can't recite a shorter number of verses in the second rakat verse. No, I haven't come across that. The scholars do say that the first rakat you should try to make the first rakat a bit longer than the second, and others argue you don't need to, because the first rakat will always be longer because it contains thana, ta'awud, a'udhu billah, and bismillah, which the other rakats may not necessarily have. So that's a separate issue, but no, you don't have to make. You should try to make the rakats like balanced, symmetrical, the same sort of duration. Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, all the questions are done, right? It's called fiqh zakah. Yeah, fiqh zakah, definitely. Antar Fuad, may Allah bless you. May Allah bless you too. Jazakallah khair, Abdullah Khan. Just one more clarification. I read that the wudu water becomes my musta'mal and it cannot be reused. I have this doubt that when I am making wudu, some drop. So yeah. So basically, according to the scholars, the question comes. Everyone agrees that if a person does wudu, yeah, everyone kind of agrees, all the madhabs, that if a person does wudu, the water that's in the vessel is clean. Everyone agrees that. There's no difference of opinion there. They also agree, number 2, that any water that drips off your limbs is clean, as in you can drink it. So the water that's in the vessel that you've been dipping your hands in, that's clean, and it's also reusable for wudu. And the water that drips off your limbs, off your face, that water is clean, but can you reuse it for wudu? So let's say someone did wudu and the water dripped off their limbs and they collected that water in a cup and then they gave it to another person. Can the other person use this water on themselves for wudu? So the Hanafis say no, you can't. But the other madhab, Shafis, Malikis and others, they say yes, you can. We don't really have anything from the Sahaba radiallahu anhum that they like kind of said yes you can or no you can't. So it's all of an ijtihadi issue. The Hanafi's argument is that, look, once it's been used on your body, because the Prophet ﷺ said every time a person does wudu, sins are are wiped off their limbs. So they say that because sins are wiped off, the sins must be transferred into the water. So this is why spiritually that water would not be at the same level as being able to use it for wudu. However, the Hanafis do say that if that amount of water is spilt into a larger amount of water, then you can do wudu from that. So let's say you had a bucket of water, and you had this cup of water that is filled with used water that's stripped off your limbs, and you pour it into that big bucket. You can use all that to do wudu. It's fine, because the small amount is kind of overpowered by the rest. Okay, Jazakumullah khair, guys. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope you guys enjoyed Ramadan. May Allah bless all of you guys. May Allah put barakah in your time, in your efforts, in your fasting, in your tarawih. It's hard to fast and also try to do ibadat. It's not easy. You can, like in Ramadan, you can tell recitation tires you out sometimes, salat tires you out. That tiring feeling is actually something which is a sign of a person getting close to Allah. In the Quran, Allah says, فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ, that, O Messenger of Allah, when you finish all your duties, exhaust yourself in turning to Allah. So this exhausting ourselves in the month of Ramadan is actually a good sign for us. And when we pray to Allah, that Allah accepts our fasts and Allah puts barakah in our time as well, and also that the month of Ramadan doesn't go to waste. So whatever we've kind of like spiritually gained in Ramadan, we should ask Allah that He helps us through the next 11 months. The other next 11 months are crucial for us because that's the real test. That's the real sort of test. Ramadan is very easy to worship Allah and to spend your time in ibadat. But outside of Ramadan, that's when the real test comes, when you're able to eat and you're able to do what you want more than Ramadan. So we make dua that Allah gives us the ability for us to do that. And also, one of the most important things to remember is that we want to try and improve. So like after Ramadan, we want to be better than the 11 months before Ramadan. So I would suggest start some classes, maybe attend some lectures. If you want to do 7 Quranic Arabic 17 lessons in the some good organizations around the world that have very good courses, study someone else. Help in your community as well, I would say. Help wherever way you can. So even if it's something small you can do for the community, maybe type a letter or something, or even help the homeless, feed them, or make awareness. And also in the 11 months, we should try to cut down on those things that are spiritually bringing us down, right? Spiritually, that are causing impediments, which in these impediments are like barriers that stop us from getting close to Allah. So it doesn't matter how much good things that we do, as long as we're doing those bad things in our life, the good things are not really going to have much of an impact. So anyway, Jazakallah khair, guys. May Allah reward all of you. So AFU, I won't be able to answer this. Okay, I'll ask you. Hi, can you remarry an ex-wife who has asked for khula without having to remarry because it was not talaq? I have only... So according to Hanafis, khula is talaq. Yeah. So you can remarry her as long as you haven't given her 3 talaqs. Yeah, so according to the Hanafis, they consider it to be a talaq. Shafis consider khula to be nullification of the marriage, fasakh. So according to Hanafis, yes, you'd be able to marry her as long as it was only 1 or 2 talaqs previously given. Right, guys, and okay, next week there won't be any live session next week, and 1 week I'm going to be taking off for Eid and all that, and just to kind of sort some of my own personal issues out, and inshallah after that 1 week, inshallah, so not from this Monday, hopefully the Monday after, I'll start everything else again, right? So we'll be taking a break, inshallah, and it was wonderful with you guys, and as you guys all know, I always enjoy your company as well, and benefit a lot from you guys. Hopefully we're going to be planning the podcast as well, so yeah, tune in inshallah after then. Make dua for me, make dua for Roots of Knowledge, make dua for the TAs as well, who mashallah work tirelessly, and all our students as well, who are mashallah online, learning. We got alhamdulillah, I mean, in Ramadan we got a lot of students. Before Ramadan we had many students as well, going through the 17 lessons, Surah Yasin, Ajurumiyya, and Balagha, Usul Fiqh, alhamdulillah, from all around the world. And make dua for them as well, that Allah puts barakah in their time as well. Jazakumullah khair. Take care, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.